Why does Donald Trump want to buy Greenland?
I think there's two elements here. It sort of appeals to his sense of ego as be the first US president in 100 years to genuinely expand the size of the country. And then there's the second sort of geopolitical aspect where there's more of a case to actually be made here. It's that Greenland, for instance, if the US were to buy it, it would increase its oil reserves by about 40%. It secures the GI-UK gap, which is the gap that Russian naval vessels use to enter the Atlantic Ocean. It also controls the Northern Sea route, which is the shortest route between Europe and Asia. So there's all these quite clear benefits. And in addition, there's quite critical aspect Greenland has to play in terms of the nuclear security of the United States, and that Greenland is essential to the polar route. So that's the shortest route between the US and Russia in terms of nuclear weapons and nuclear bombers. But there's some quite clear geopolitical reasons to actually buy the island, though it's not clear if he has that in mind.
Is Denmark not a member of NATO? I mean, can't America use Greenland, in effect, as a base through that international alliance, that nuclear umbrella?
Yes, so the United States has maintained since 1940 a base in Denmark, in Greenland's part of Denmark. Since 1940, it's the Pituffik Air Force Base. So it used to be called the Tula Air Force Base. Historically, it's had 10,000, 20,000 troops based on it, but now it's really down to about 200, 300 troops. They obviously can continue to use this Air Force base, and there's a bit of a challenge in the past. So in 2019, for example, China tried to buy a disused US base, 2 disused US Air Force bases on Greenland, and obviously Denmark had to say no. And what's happening now is there's going to be a referendum, in all likelihood, on Greenlandic independence sometime in April to coincide with their general election. And obviously, if they were to leave Denmark, they could then potentially leave NATO, which could open up a whole new can of worms for the United States.
So the real risk here is that China could be wanting to buy Greenland as well, or at least establish influence there. I mean, why is this such a strategically important part of the world?
There's just so many reasons. The resources under the island. If you think if it was a country on its own, it'd be about the fifth largest in terms of oil reserves. In terms of rare earth minerals, there's this huge potential. There's about $3.5 trillion worth of rare earth materials underneath the island, which is obviously critical to the new technological change we're experiencing in terms of electric vehicles and the renewable energy transition. So there was actually an article in Politico from 2019 where a senior European policy fellow was arguing that the EU should buy Greenland. So there's this sort of competing tensions emerging now between the United States, the EU and China, all because there's large resource base here and just the security element